So Talitha Abramsen moved to the Lower Cape 6 years ago from Western Mass after vacationing her whole life. Vacationing here her whole life.
Yes, good point.
I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense.
Teacher.
I was not an English teacher. I was a math teacher.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. Her career has a common thread of championing social causes that are cutting edge, counter to the mainstream, and root cause oriented. Though she never anticipated her bachelor's degree in women's studies and master's in social justice education would lead her to become passionate about wastewater as one of her causes. She sees the housing and wastewater/water quality crisis facing the Cape as equity issues at their core, in addition to being health concerns. Currently, she manages the Lower Cape Housing and ADU Resource Center at the Community Development Partnership in Orleans. Take it away, Talitha.
Thank you, Janine. I'm going to put this here. Welcome back from lunch. I'm really excited to be here with all of you, as I'm sure everyone else is excited. This is just such a great gathering. And I'm really excited to talk about housing. I came into my role at the CDP. I obviously had to go into this work with an organization with an acronym that says CDP, but the Community Development Partnership is not an expert in any way in wastewater. I want to get that right off the bat out of the gate. We are really promoting economic development, small business support, and year-round housing that's affordable in the Lower and Outer Cape. And so we work with 8 towns from Harwich and Brewster all the way up to P-Town, and do a lot of work with residents, towns, you name it. And so my entity came about with some ARPA funding back in 2022, and I came on board in 2023. And to my knowledge, I'm the only ADU Resource Center on the Cape that's fully active. I think I'm one of maybe 2, maybe less than 5, if I'm being generous, in the whole state. And so I see a slice of this issue we're talking about that I don't think many people do. Connor started to kind of hit this thread, which I was thankful for, and I'm really appreciative to be able to share what I'm learning from homeowners who really are wanting to address 2 crises at once, the housing and our wastewater, water quality. All of these issues are connected. We can't look at them in a silo. So, my mantra is P is key to unlock housing in ADUs, okay? There's my key. And if you notice, it's a UD toilet with some houses. So this is the origins of my work. I started very young. It's my first ADU I built with my dad. So, you know, I come at it honestly. But I want to start a little differently. I want to bring we heard a lot of really powerful data and a lot of talk about regulatory pathways and progress, which is really important, but I want to bring the heart into this, not just the mind, and I want to bring the right brain into this and not just the left brain data, and I also want to bring the sacredness into this. We're talking about water, we're talking about homes, we're talking about food. That's sacred. And so I want to start by asking, is there anyone representing the Wampanoag community in our presence today? That's a problem on us in terms of organizing. They need to be at the core of this. We need to be learning from them, right? And that, to me, it's on me. Like, I am beginning to make these inroads, but my presentation was framed off of a really amazing book called Indigenous Systems Thinking. I highly recommend it. Is there anybody from town positions in the audience today, whether it's committees that you sit on for your town, whether it's staff, volunteers? Okay, we need more. And is there anyone from the housing field today?
Building housing?
No, like advocating, building. I got my little peep Sharon over here. Okay, great. We need more people in housing talking about this issue. And that's partly what I'm trying to do over the next year. So I want to start with my gratitude for all the people I've learned from. I never knew anything about housing, and I didn't know anything about wastewater 2.5 years ago. And these are all the people that helped me get to the understanding that I have today. And so there's a bunch of them in the room. And I just want to say thank you. People have been so generous with their expertise and their wisdom and their experience. And there are a lot of people that are not in the room that I'm going to kind of touch upon, but I just wanted to name the folks that have informed my thinking. And this is one of the things I want to kind of shift us in looking at. This comes from the Indigenous systems thinking, really looking at the simplicity of urine diversion, the way that it comes back to how the natural cycle is meant to ensue, and that the systems we're so used to promoting and being involved with, they move, they measure, they spend, but they don't remember, right? There's a lot about timelines and cycles that we need to kind of come back to. So this is a great quote from somebody to bring in, at the very least, from the Wampanoag tribe, Ramona Peters. She's a member of the Bear Clan and founder of the Native Land Conservancy. She talks about, we name ourselves after the land we live with, because we're not only breathing in, we're also drinking from the water that is flavored by that very land. Whatever is deposited in the soil is in that water, is in us. So we are all one thing, and we name ourselves after that place that is our nurturing, that sustains our life. This is how I want to think about this issue. So this is where I get emotional. This is my backyard. This is Bell's Neck in West Harwich. It's like the best kept secret for birders. It is the most amazing conservation land that our town has secured, and it has this history that we had no idea when we bought our house, because of this land being in close proximity to us, that this was the history going back as far as 100 AD. Large clay pots and pottery were found, as well as a stone gouge likely used for woodworking around 2000 BC. All of this connected to the indigenous community, right? It was a fishing and a summer camp for them dating back 5,000 years. That's the remembering, right? And told by white people, the history was that it was sold to John Bell by Little Robin, who lived near Numscosset, which is now known as East Dennis. So John Bell, we name it after, in Western culture, a man. But in indigenous culture, they name it after the land, right? We have to keep going back to what is the right way in this. So this other quote spoke to me. No matter how deep we bury the past, it always wells back up. I find it best to understand rather than fear. This is a great visual of burying the past, and it wells back up in our backyard, in our ponds, right? So I want to just take a little time to talk about our past. I'm from Harwich. Anyone from Harwich? Woohoo! This is thanks to Brian Horsley. When I first met him, he told me about this. This was Harwich, 1988, our town transfer station, unlined coarse sand lagoon with raw septage being dumped into it, with a adjoining freshwater pond. That pond was dead, and thanks to, again, to the town-related people here, thanks to some forward-thinking women on the town select board, Board of Health, health director, we changed the trajectory for a lot of people. Not necessarily us, ironically, but there was a pilot that they engaged John Todd of New Alchemy Institute, Oceans Arc International, for a pilot at our town transfer station to treat raw septage using what he developed as solar aquatic technology known as the Eco Machine, the Living Machine, a whole host of other things that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. They're in rest stops in Vermont. They're all over the world, informed by the data from our town dump. People in my own town just learned of this. It has been stuffed in 5 banker boxes, which I unearthed, but that's how we treat our past. Shoved in an attic, thank God not shredded, and we're not learning from it, right? So he was able to treat raw septage into potable drinking water standards in 10 days using sun, plants, animal kingdom. Simple, not simple, but simple, right? Like very complicated when you look at the blueprints in these boxes, but the concepts are going back to nature. That's John Todd, who I know has just recently left the Cape. His spirit is here, but physically he's somewhere else. I hope in his absence we can actually carry on this work at a deeper, faster level. So this is 1988. This is talking about a ban on development. There's housing. There is the exciting new Harwich experiment right next to housing, 1988, right? And I will tell you, Harwich does not get behind many projects coalescing with enthusiasm. When I ask any person about this, down to the DPW director, the enthusiasm, the pride, I get people getting choked up. That is what happens when you work in the right way and you work with sacredness, is that it taps you, right? It taps you. I've been very moved by learning about this, right? So here's our present. Just this Sunday, editorial, Boston Globe, thanks to Jane Ward, sent this to me, talking about all the septic regulations, and this woman finally connected it to housing and mentioned ADUs. There's been talk about how wastewater impedes housing. It's usually multifamily. It's usually talking about large developments. It doesn't talk about ADUs in the, the report that they put out about housing barriers. So I feel like I'm this lone Lorax on this, like, talking about ADUs, right? In this, quickly, you can see they talk about large units being approved for 120 units, right? But when they have the wastewater restriction come in, only 58 are possible. We have 2 big units going into Harwich. They are both facing opposition because of environment, concern about the river pollution, and also not being able to build to the capacity they could on that land because of wastewater restrictions. We got to start thinking more creatively. So I just want to quickly educate you guys. This is what I do. I do info sessions on the housing crisis. We are one of the people who bought in 2019. Our house was $340,000. It's now close to $680,000, $700,000. We would never be able to live here. I wouldn't be doing this work if I had bought 6 months later. It's a $401,000 increase. That's 2023 data from 4 years. So when you look at, and this is 2023 data, but when you look at Barnstable County, looking at accountants making 91 at the top, home health aid, everyone who makes our lives work, the people who get paid the least, 38,000, if you make that an average. This person could afford 300, a school teacher 250, firefighter 225, everyone who makes our life run 115. That's calculated with 20,000 down, only $300 in debt. So you have a car, you have college, you're way over 300. And I don't know who's saving 20,000 these days, right? 811,000 is the average for single family homes as of 2023 data. Nobody can afford to live here. This is like, if this is not the crisis where we start to think differently and act differently, what is it going to take? So this was from yesterday, Zillow. I did a search, property, New England area, under 300,000, all those little red dots. Go over to the Cape, a lot less. Let me show you what's available. We have, for 47,000, a seasonal RV. Can't even live in the RV full time. For 115, that home health care worker can live in a motel room in Orleans. For 260, you get 240 square feet, seasonal. Can't even live there in the winter and the fall. That's in Harwich. 280, you get 276 square feet. That's in Eastham, again, seasonal. You see there's like a mini fridge in there. But hey, you can, for 240,000, get a ocean view on a house that's going to fall in the next storm. That's what we're working with, right? That's why my center exists. It's like parents want their kids to stay here. They can't, right? Kids want to take care of their parents. They can't. So, hey, and the owner has no plan for when it falls into the ocean. So great. So just a couple more things to freak you out. 73% of households by 2030 will have no kids. We're not building houses for those people. We're building like McMansions. We're building, double the Levittown as a minimum, right? And 64% of the housing stock as of 2005 are single family. So we're in this housing crisis across the country because we have this mismatch of what's available versus what the family structure is. And then the zoning that's restrictive that you can't have in places like multifamily housing, right? So, but we're in this kind of canary in the coal mine because of the seasonality, the COVID, everybody buying the houses, and the wastewater. So I feel like if we can figure this out, we can figure this out for a whole lot of other communities, like other people have said earlier. So ADUs, I assume a lot of people know what they are, but I always want to make sure they're accessory dwelling units. They're a smaller unit on a property with a primary house. You can't have a tiny home on a property that's just a home, right? There always needs to be a primary house and a secondary dwelling unit. And they've been called many things over generations. We've had these. We used to just design and develop our communities with these as needed, right? The issue is the zoning has gotten so restrictive that now we have to have these special categories, special legislation. But right now, 61% of the ADUs being built are for multi-generational housing. 1 in 5 shares their home, right? And COVID, I think, really brought that back for us in terms of people returning home and finding out that there are benefits to that. So in 2024, there was great progress in the housing field, thanks to our governor. Huge monumental $5.16 billion in funding, 50 policy initiatives, including an exciting first-time ADUs by right legislation. I think we're among like company of 15 other states, California, Washington, Oregon. They're probably a decade ahead of us. So there's a lot to learn from them. But when I've talked to the experts and the guru in the field, they very much are very urban. They are on sewer, so they think there's no need to think about these issues. And I'm having to educate them as well. But nobody is considering ADUs and eco toilets as a way to create more ADUs at this point. To my knowledge, this is like, I don't know, it doesn't seem that, it's not rocket science to me, but here we are. So people want these for a variety of reasons, year-round rental housing, income for a senior. They're often built faster sometimes than a new home. You know, you can optimize your backyard without having to, if we have more of these ADUs, we need less of like a giant development per se. And they're also really personal. It's every single person that calls my center has a personal need for this. It's not a theoretical housing tool. It's my parent is ailing. My kid needs to, you know, have a place to live. They're living in their car. My business is going to fold because they don't have staff, right? So these are the stories I hear day in and day out. And so I basically have, the center has had 200 people reach out to us in the 3.5 years we've been open. And I did a survey in the last month to 130 of those people. 24 got back to me. 22 have not started or completed an ADU. So within my first month, I knew this was the reality. And I thought, well, this is kind of depressing. I don't really want to be in a job that's about hearing no or hearing I can't do it or telling them they can't do it. So that's where I started to learn from people like Hilda and Earl, Brian. There's got to be a different way. There's got to be a third way out of this, right? So the hurdles that ADU owners are facing is that, it was mentioned before, 85% of us are on septic. The rest of the country, on average, it's only a quarter, right? So again, we're solving an issue that's more specific to us, but if we solve it, it's Long Island, it's any coastal community, it's any water, you know, scarce community, anyone on septic. This is applicable to so many different applications. But the basic piece of it is that septic causes such, if you have to upgrade or if you have to upgrade to sewer, there are so many additional costs on top of what already are, let's see, the construction costs, right? We're talking $300,000 to $500,000 to build an ADU. That's more than what we bought our house for. And they're usually like 500, 700 square feet. Our house was 1,600. So you add on an additional 50, 100,000 if you have to have an IA, or even a $3,000 and $5,000 for an additional tank. There's all these ways that the regulations are making it even harder to build these. And the fact that we might have small lots and you might not be able to have an IA, and you might not want to take down the old growth trees and the landscape that involve, you know, that. So that's where it's like, we need more tools. So one of the things that 24 out of 24 are on septic. So one of the thoughts was like, I should go and really promote this to sewered areas, right? And this is 24 out of 130, but the Outer Cape is very much septic dependent. We're not an urban core like Hyannis or Falmouth, right? And so I feel like I need to be responding to these people who are not seeing sewer for, in our case, we have another 20 years in our neighborhood. Our ponds are dead in our neighborhood. I can't walk my dog because it's toxic. I bought because of this place, right? And now I can't even enjoy it. and I'm waiting 20 years for sewer to, you know, be the savior, and I can't, you know, I want a solution now, and I want a solution that allows more people to stay in their homes, and it helps with the water. So that's why I got involved in this, just kind of this learning. I feel like I am learning from so many people. So one of the issues is that people say there's not a lot of interest. Out of the 24 people I asked, who wants to go on a tour to learn about this? I got 13 yeses and I got 4 maybes. I only got 3 no's. Every single person I talk to, I don't ever encounter the ick factor. I encounter enthusiasm. I encounter curiosity. I encounter interest. If you hear the ick factor, I encourage you to like dig a little deeper with that person. I think it's a cover. I think it's ignorance, I think it's stereotypes, and I also think it's a concerted interest to squash it, in my opinion. I see this as the third way out of these two crises. So, so one of the things I've proposed is that we consider expanding or replicating the pilot in Falmouth to consider ADUs as an application site. And why I did that is that the homes in Falmouth being considered already have people securely housed. We need more data to be collected, and we need more people to be housed. An ADU having this application would collect data and house people today. So that's one of the things in my you do you, which would not be mandated, which to the point earlier, if you want to do this, you're going to be invested to learn how to use the technology, right? And that's one of the things that people mention is that it's not, people can't make the behavior shift. We've shifted around everything, smoking, recycling. It's possible. It takes education, it takes time, and it takes commitment, right? So here's some options people have already started talking about outside of ADUs is like using the AmeriCorps housing for the county and you know, retrofitting those toilets with UD, or using, you know, property with the Wampanoag because they don't have to go through the DEP. They're federal, right? Can we like figure out these creative ways to show this application works and help people in the process? So there's a lot of questions around, and we've mentioned a lot of this stuff. One of the things for people looking at seasonal communities designation, I wonder if this is a pathway for us to get this piloted through seasonal communities designation. And I am basically starting a regional working group of municipal leaders in the Lower and Outer Cape starting November through January. I have about 20 people on board, everyone from town planners, town health agents, directors, Board of Health. I have a pond association and a FinCom member in the room, and we're going to learn what we learned here today and then talk about what do we do in our region. Is this worth, you know, pursuing? Is it worth pursuing on a town level, on a regional level? And the one last thing I'll just say is when the DEP came down with the determination of the revolving fund being shifted, I've never seen so much collaboration across the Cape with all of the gatekeepers, all of the power holders, all of the leaders defending our need for resources. And what happened? The DEP shifted. It's possible. We just have to get organized enough. We need to get energized enough. We need to get educated enough and aligned. It can't just be on one town, you know? It cannot just rest with Falmouth. They are indicative of everything else that we are seeing across the Cape. So, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. There's books I recommend that I've loved if you want to take a picture, and they'll also be in the slide deck.